Evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'd like to call the Ferndale City Council meeting to order for Monday, May 7th, 2012. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Galloway.
Here.
Lennon.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Kiana. Here. And Mayor Coulter.
Here, thank you, yes, and we have a quorum. The next item would be the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Move to accept the agenda.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there discussion? Oh, I guess I would like to add a fourth presentation, and that is we have our county commissioner in the house, and I usually give him an opportunity to come up and speak when he's here. So if you don't mind, I'd like to add presentation D, Craig Covey. Any other changes to the agenda? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Council members Galloway.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Kiana. Yes. And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. And our first presentation this evening is Poppy Week. And up there's Frank right there. Frank, good to see you, as always.
Evening. Thank you. Before you set the proclamation, I have just a small statement to read out, and that's about it. Each year around Memorial Day, veterans of the foreign wars, boy, they're coming out real quick. Thank you. Again, each year around Memorial Day, veterans of the foreign wars, American Legion, auxiliary volunteers, we distribute millions of these red poppies in exchange for contributions to assist disabled and hospitalized veterans. This program provides mutual benefits to the veterans and to the community. The hospitalized veterans who make the flowers are able to earn a small wage, which will help supplement their incomes and make them feel more self-sufficient. The physical and mental activity provides many therapeutic benefits as well. Donations are used exclusively to assist and support veterans and the families. The poppy also reminds the community of the sacrifice and continuing needs of our veterans. This poppy has become a national known symbol and recognized of the sacrifice that is worn to honor the men and women who served and died for our country and all. This coming Thursday the 17th will be our actual annual major drive, and we'll be out throughout the weekend, even though you're recognizing us for the whole week, but still we'll be out. So it's been customary for me in doing this in the last 22 years to present this and to have the council offer the first set of poppies that we have. Mayor, you can go ahead and proceed from there.
I'll read the proclamation while you come up and sell us a poppy. How is that?
Thank you.
So the city of Ferndale proclaims the week of May 14th to the 19th, 2012 as National Poppy Week. Americans enthusiastically support this annual tribute to their war dead, which provides funds for the rehabilitation and increased comfort of those deserving disabled veterans of all wars. And the sale of this flower of remembrance, again, will be handled by the American Legion and the VFW veterans and their auxiliary units. Now, therefore, I, Dave Coulter, Mayor of the City of Ferndale, officially declares and proclaims the week of May 14th to the 19th, 2012 as Poppy Week in the City of Ferndale, and urge all citizens to support this sale, which has great significance for the living victims of the war. So, Frank, thank you again for all your work that you do in this, and good luck with the sales.
Thank you.
And I'll give you that proclamation to take on your way back. Thank you, Frank. There's the proclamation for you, and appreciate your work. Thanks.
And if anybody wishes to have one before I leave, I'll walk around and take any donations. Thank you again.
Thanks, Frank. All right, our next presentation would be from the Ferndale Public Schools.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Hall. I'm Director of Pupil Services and Community Relations for the Ferndale Schools. And again, always thank you for our opportunity to tell you what's going on in the district. We are in the final 6 weeks of the school year, and we've had one prom, we have 2 to go, and we have 3 graduations coming up in the next couple of weeks, so it's a busy time. This is the time of year where we're seeking nominations for students that you know are outstanding in the class of 2012, our upcoming graduates. The John F. Kennedy Scholarship has honored students since 1964. When it was created, and there are actually parents in this room whose students have won that award. They are the student who best represents the outstanding student of that class, academically, as scholars, as athletes, as musicians, and as leaders. So if you know anybody, we're accepting nominations until Wednesday. The application is easy to find. It's right on our homepage. You just click on it, fill it out, and email it back to me. And we'd love to hear from you and get as many nominations as possible. I just want you to know that after 42 years, Herb Ivory, who's the principal of Ferndale High School, is retiring. This is his last year. It's his last graduation. Everything is, and he's really, he's soaking it up. He's enjoying all that, these endings. His last graduation will be May 30th at Meadowbrook. And, there are people throughout our community who not only had him as a teacher, but as a principal, or their children had him as a principal. And, we are looking for as many ways to recognize him as possible. So, if you would like to join us at any of our events that are coming up at graduation, we also have an end-of-the-year staff event on June 15th where we'll be recognizing him as we transition into the future. And in case I didn't tell you last time, our current Executive Vice Principal, Lisa Williams, has been appointed principal, so the transition is in place. Herb is irreplaceable, but Lisa has been studying, and I think it'll be a great time after he retires. Just as an FYI, the Ferndale Education Foundation and the Ferndale Fine Arts Boosters every year sponsor the 4Kids Classic Golf Outing. It is Monday, June 25th, and if you would like to golf or sponsor a student golfer or any other kind of sponsorship for it, that information is also on our website. So that's June 25th if you'd like to participate.
Stephanie, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Our next presentation is the Police Department Unit Commendation Awards. Our police chief, on a regular basis, when service merits, comes and presents commendations. And so, Chief, I'll let you lead this item.
You haven't seen us in the last several months because we've been revamping the awards process, and we have developed a new award document. And the gentlemen that are on that committee have been doing quite a good job, and they will be seen with the 12-hour shift. We were trying to schedule this so we can get as much participation as we can and see it's working out very well. This is an award that is really kind of cool because it had 4 different police departments came together, and they just an outstanding arrest and took a really serious bad guy off the streets. And just to paint a little bit of a picture for you what this was like, it was a dark and stormy night.
I'm scared already.
There was snow on the ground, and it was raining cats and dogs. Everybody was nestled in their beds, especially the firefighters. And Oak Park Police Department received a call, an alarm at a party store in their city. Within minutes, we received one in our city at the Ardmore Party Store. Responding officers showed up, and there was broken window out. There was red footprints in the ground. They checked the store. Bad guys were gone. So they called in the Southfield Police Department, graciously supplied a canine for us. They came into the
folks at home probably.
they supplied us with a canine officer. We began a track. The officers set up a perimeter. They held this perimeter for better than a couple of hours. They tracked this individual through both with the dog and through by finding these red footprints in the snow, which at first appeared to be blood. Secondly, it turned out to be the guy had a cheap pair of shoes that were red and were leaving red footprints throughout the neighborhood. Anyway, they followed these footprints up to a house in Oak Park on Majestic Street. knocked on the door, and lo and behold, here's a guy that's shoeless with a pair of red shoes that are leaking all over the other guy's carpet. And nobody knew nothing, but the guy that was there without shoes had a whole boatload of money in his pocket, so he pretty much got arrested. So it was a great cooperative effort with our officers, with the Southfield Police Department, with the Oak Park Police Department, and the Pleasant Ridge Police Department. So we thought it was a good idea for this to be our first inaugural one with the new awards, to call these folks up to receive these awards. And the first one is Officer Ashley Smith, the K-9 officer from the Southfield Police Department. Next is Officer Kevin Nowak from Pleasant Ridge Police Department. And Sergeant James Giannopoulos from the Oak Park Police Department. I don't know if he's here tonight. Some of them said that they could not appear. And then we have Officer Mike Edwards from the Oak Park Police Department.
Chief Dale got laid off.
I'll put a downer on it. Officer Chris Furlong from Oak Park Police Department. Officer Matthew Miracle. Officer James Cedar. Officer Lauren Tanner. And Officer John Lensis from the Oak Park Police Department. They deserve a where they are. And we hope that things get better for them. Now for our own police department, Sergeant Baron Brown. Officer Patrick Lemke. Can't remember who's senior. Officer Joseph Bergnoli. Officer Amanda Szymanski. Officer Jonathan Clear. That is it for us. Thank you, Mayor, for giving us the opportunity to make that presentation.
Chief, thanks for presenting these fine people and sharing the story. Officers, thank you very much for your great work as always. Thank you very much. And presentation D would be our county commissioner, Craig Covey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad I was here for that portion of the meeting. That's always great. Just no county business so much, but there's just a host of events coming up that I wanted to share with you all, if you don't mind. First of all, every Thursday now, the committee is meeting to put on Ferndale Pride, which is growing to 4 days long now. We are subsisting totally from volunteers. About 20 people now are coming. Every Thursday at 6:30 we meet at Affirmations. And the one neat thing I want to share is we think we're going to be able to bring the movie Bully to town here to Ferndale. This is an award-winning film, documentary, obviously about bullying, and we're working closely with the Magic Bag Theater to make that part of the weekend. So I will keep you informed. I'm really hopeful that we get that to come, and we're going to do some special outreach to teachers and school administrators and parents as well for that particular. I'm working with Matt and the Ferndale Community Foundation to work on and promote the Clean the F Up, Clean the Ferndale Up, of course, is what that F stands for. That is this coming Saturday. Folks are meeting at 8:30 to 9 here at City Hall. You don't have to bring anything, although if you want to bring little hand shovels and gloves and stuff, but we'll have all the supplies. and parties are going to go out to the schools and to the parks. We're going to pick up litter, lay mulch, basically clean up Ferndale, plant flowers and stuff. So I'll try and be there right on the dot at 8:30.
I'd like to see that.
But I might work the later. Thank you, Mayor. I may work the later shift because flower planting can happen all the time. Councilman Lennon, I'll look for you there, right? Also that morning. Also, this coming Monday, a week from tonight, is the annual Ferndale Youth Assistance Youth Recognition Night. I'm the chairman of the board of that. We deliberately set that at 5:30 so that many of you can attend. I promise you, and Judge Longo will be helping run that meeting. We have 100 youth that we're going to recognize, but I promise we'll have you out of there by 7:30 in case you have another city council meeting. So that is this coming Monday, 5:30 at the Kulik Community Center. Congratulations to Jill, by the way, our new director. On the 16th, which is next Wednesday, the annual David Smith Foundation fundraiser is being held at BW3, Buffalo Wild Wings. This is a part of Ferndale Youth Assistance, and it's a really good cause, and all you need to do is stop by Buffalo Wild Wings and then have some wings or a pop or something and make a donation, or the restaurant will donate as well. And then finally, two more things. Friday the 18th, which is a week from Friday, the Elks is having another one of their recognizing of our heroes. I'm going to make it to this one, Mayor. I know you went to the last one, Hanging with the Heroes. We have a Navy veteran returning from the Middle East, and that's at the Elks at 7 p.m. Congratulations on your new membership in the Elks, Mr. Mayor. You follow a long line of mayors who've been part of the Elks.
That's what I was told.
And then finally, on Saturday the 19th, we have a resource fair at the Royal Oak Township Community Center. The Youth Assistance Group will have a booth there. Again, just a lot of different events. That's just in the next 10 days, and more things are coming. I understand the DDA has won some more awards, and they're going to win some more awards, so congratulations to them, and thank you for your time.
Great.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Council.
it, Commissioner. Thank you. Our next order of business would be a public hearing on the fiscal year 2013 budget, and I'll let our city manager introduce that item.
This is one of two opportunities for the public to come and speak on the budget as recommended. I didn't know, sir, if you wanted to have the presentation now or later on the agenda. It's up to you.
That's a very good question. Why don't we do it when it's on the agenda?
Okay.
Later on the agenda. Yep.
But this is an opportunity for any residents who are interested in speaking their concerns or suggestions regarding the budget as presented.
So let me open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address council on the fiscal year 2013 budget? Sherry Wells.
Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. I know you're working hard to try to avoid as much of the millage as you're predicting for 2013. Are there any ways in which the residents can help? I know the trash thing, if we recycle more than goes into the trash trucks, we would not have to pay for trash. I don't know what that figure is. I remember seeing it last year. I'm sure it's not enough. But are there other ways in addition to that one that the residents could assist their city and also help keep the tax bite down for themselves?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, City Manager, I think the issue there is that doesn't actually affect the general fund, it affects the sanitation fund. So it would help our sanitation fund, but it wouldn't help our general fund, which is what that Headley millage helps us.
All right, but that's still only a small part. Are there any ways, or I know it's been bare bone, and I know one of the things that what I heard at the last budget meeting is we've already cut a lot of employees, and some of them have been residents, and so by losing their jobs, they're hurting worse than any of the rest of us. And that you're trying not to cut anymore. I don't know where you'd cut them from. But are there any ways that the residents?
Well, I would just say that when we have the discussion later in the agenda, we've asked the city manager to present us with some additional options for savings, and we're going to talk about those tonight.
Great.
So, yeah. Thank you.
But I will take back to department heads the conversation of if there is anything that residents can do to help us offset costs.
Well, I had
as a
heard during
activities. Sure, you can do that.
millage thing where people are saying, well, we can go clean up the parks. Well, whether that would actually happen, but I did hear people say that. Thank you.
You can ask.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening, Katie.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You know I can't pass up the opportunity to talk about the budget.
Well, and you served on the Citizen Finance Committee, and we appreciate that. So you know the budget as well as any of us.
And what I especially want to say tonight is I want to thank City Manager McGrath, every member of the council, you, Mayor, every department for keeping the additional millage down to 0.75 for this coming fiscal year. I really appreciate that. And you have, you know, that 5 mills is there, and I'm just glad that you can say, oh, we can grab some more money. And I really appreciate it, keeping it at a minimum that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to address council on the budget this evening? Commissioner Covey.
Thanks again, Mayor. Having sat up there for 11 years, I know how very, very difficult it is to cut the budget. I know how important it is. I want to encourage you, and I know you're already doing it, but I just want to say in front of all of the residents, do everything you can to keep that raise as small as possible. I know you're already doing that, but 3/4 of a mil, half a mil, every little bit helps because people truly are hurting. There are people that are on fixed incomes. There are people who are unemployed. And not everyone's taxes have gone down each year. I know because of the real estate bubble that some folks have luckily saw their tax rates go down. But I also know many folks, including myself, who for whatever reason been in the house longer, have yet to see that, and actually taxes go up each year. So I know the hard work you're doing. Do your best to keep the increase as very small as possible, and you'll continue to have the full backing of the entire city. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And as the city manager alluded to, it is discussing the budget is on our regular agenda. She'll have a short presentation, so more on the budget to come. Which brings us to call to audience. Call to audience is, as you know, a half hour now, more time if we need it at the end of the meeting. It's 3 minutes for you residents to speak on anything they like that's not on the agenda, because I'll give you an opportunity to speak on that when the time comes. Tell us your name and your address, and you get 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Again, I come here and speaking on behalf of the veterans. I received a letter from our Oakland County Clerk, Register of Deeds, Bill Bullard, and this is concerning, I'm making an announcement to all veterans. In the letter it says, Dear all veterans, in honor of your service of our nation, Oakland County Executive Al Brooks Patterson and Oakland County Clerk, Register of Deeds Bill Bullard cordially invited you to a major announcement for 73,000 veterans living in Oakland County. On Thursday, May 10th, 2012 at 10 a.m., Mr. Patterson and Bullard will unveil Oakland County's new Veterans Identification Card acknowledging those who have served in the armed services. This patriotic ceremony will be held at the Board of Commissioners Auditorium at 1200 North Telegraph in Pontiac. It will include a color guard, a beautiful rendition of our national anthem and a pledge of allegiance, followed by inspirational words from Mr. Patterson and Bullard and local veterans. So what it is that it's a new card that's coming out. I have one here. It's an identification card for veterans to carry in their wallets. A lot of the vets carry their DD-214. It's a big paper, as you know, when you leave the service, you get a big one. You don't get something small. As you know, a lot of the stores and restaurants are offering 10% to all veterans, 20%, 30%, but they ask, you have to be in uniform. Of course, a lot of them are out of service. But this ID card is just validated as good as it can be because it's signed by the Oakland County Clerk. And what it has on here, it'll have your name, address where you live at, the date the card is issued, the date you've been discharged from the service, and the branch of service. Now, what it is it saves time from you taking that ID card that you were given when you retire or leave the military. And if you put in your wallet, you know, some of the World War II vets, their cards are really torn apart. This is like a driver's license, you know, or a credit card. Mine is from Macomb. Unfortunately, I live there, you know. So we had this done first, and it was brought to Albert Patterson, the executive director, and now he decided to do this for the veterans in Oakland County because we pushed. I still speak in Oakland County a lot. I'm still representative of Ferndale, Madison Heights with American Legion, and I'm one of the individuals that worked with this, and they're going to push this on. What it is, there will be there's a catch to it. There'll be $10 fee, more likely. That's what we paid at Macomb. But in Oakland County, it might be. It'll only cover the plastic that this is taking care of, and of course the printing, and the rest of it will be put in escrow for veterans programs. I understand they're trying to put a commission of veterans to run programs for the commission. But anyway, on this behalf of this card, I want to introduce to all the veterans out in Oakland County, in Ferndale, and whoever's watching. After this is introduced, any day you go up there, all you got to do is bring your DD-214. That's your discharge papers. And what neat about it is they'll give you a copy of your discharge papers, nice long parchment paper. Now, what they do is, okay, what they do is all they do is register your number in a book. So in case you ever lose your DD-214, you can just tell them what book and what system it is. So again, that's this Thursday. So we hope to see a lot of the veterans out there. And you, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Ed Allison. This is my wife, Kevin. We're here representing the Michigan Fallen Heroes Foot Float. We're proud to say that we've been a part of the Ferndale Memorial Parade, this being our 5th year. Has a special place in my heart because I am a Vietnam-era veteran myself. And I found out about it after moving here and got involved, and I'm excited about it, so I want to share that with you guys and everyone else that's in Ferndale and hopefully participate. One of the reasons we're here, of course, is to explain how our foot float works. It's called a foot float because we have over 250 Michiganders who have died in the Iraq and Afghanistan conflict since 2001. And our sole purpose is to honor those people. And we're doing that by having their photograph and the arena they served in and when they died. And the people that participate in the float carry these signs so that all of the community can see these people and know that they gave their lives for us. That's why we're so excited about that. We need about 250 people. So we're soliciting those people so that they can come and be a part of this. They'll be blessed because I know that we have been. We also gladly take donations so we can continue this project for the years to come. We are trying to emphasize this year the Iraq War because it's been declared ended. So there will be a special emphasis on that. We'll have a float on wheels with a placard that has the silhouette symbols of what's happened over there, and also all these folks that are walking with these signs and the banners. And so we want to invite everyone to participate. We have a website, and I'm going to be leaving flyers in the back. I think there may be some there already, but the website address is there. If you
tell folks at home because they won't be able to see the flyer, so why don't you announce what the website is for people at home to sign up?
Let me get my eyes on. It is MichiganFallenHeroesParade.org. That's MI, FallenHeroesParade.org. And on the website, it'll describe in more detail what our purpose is and those kinds of things. And it'll give the information as to where to meet and when to meet on the day of the parade and how to be involved.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your time.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming. Thanks for your service in Vietnam as well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else who would like to address council this evening? Christina?
Good evening. Christina Shepherd, DCS Ferndale TDA Executive
Frank sold you a
Director.
poppy, I see.
Yes, of course. I was trying to find a place to put it, so. Just a couple announcements. This Wednesday at 10 a.m., Main Street, Oakland County will be holding its press conference for all those who received national accreditation from the National Main Street Center. Ferndale is definitely one of them. So we'll be joining a few other communities in Oakland County getting that accreditation. There will be one of the national chair will be there. So very exciting to have the head of the whole entire National Main Street Center actually come to Oakland County for this ceremony. That will be at the Holly Hotel at 10 a.m. Also this week, coming up on Saturday, we have Clean the Ferndale Up. So those who want to dig in, get a little dirty so the city gets a little cleaner, we'd really like to have you out. Registration starts at 8:30 here at City Hall, 8:30 a.m. So Saturday, please come out. It's only for a couple hours. Bring your family with you because kids can definitely help out, and it's a great thing to do with the family and really show how you can help your community. Third item that I wanted to announce is next week, May 17th, is third Thursday, our bike night. So we'll actually be, encouraging people to get out, ride their bikes, come on downtown from 6 to 9 p.m. At Shipper Park, we'll be doing some tune-ups and some other special items for bike night, as well as we are going to be launching our first on-street bike rack. So there you'll be receiving a little bit more information, council members, about the official launch of that. So we're still putting the agenda together, but it'll probably be right about 6 o'clock at night. So hope you can join us. It'll be really great to see some artistic bike racks out there, and hopefully just the start for many more to come. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else who would like to address council during the call to audience? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda are items that council considers routine and we enact in one motion unless something is removed from the consent agenda. Let me spend just a moment to read the consent agenda for you. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular and special meetings held April 23rd, 2012, and the special meeting held April 30th, 2012. B is the approval of the June 2012 as Scleroderma Awareness Month. C is the approval of the special event permit for the WAB Food Truck Rally to be held on June 23rd, 2012, August 4th, 2012, and October 6th, 2012, from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on East Troy Street. D is the approval of a special event permit for Pig and Whiskey to be held on July 13th, 2012, from 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. on July 14th, 2012, from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m., and on July 15th of 2012 from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. on East Troy Street and in the Falvey parking lot. E is an approval of a special event permit for Sierra Club's Green Cruise to be held August 11th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Planavon and in the southwest corner of the Withington parking lot with a parade on West 9 Mile Road at 12 p.m. F is the approval to adopt the resolutions rescinding the objections to the renewal of an escrowed Class C liquor license for S&J Post, Inc., doing business as the Post Bar on 22828 and 30 Woodward Avenue, and Posh Entertainment, Inc., doing business as Eden Nightclub, which is at 22061 Woodward Avenue in Ferndale. G is the approval of the bills and payrolls as submitted by the City Manager's Office, subject to the review of the Council's Finance Committee.
Mayor, I'd like to pull item 7C, as in cat.
Item 7C, we will move to the regular agenda. Any other removals from council this evening? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda in its entirety except for item C.
Second.
Moved by Galloway, supported by Martin. Any discussion on the consent agenda this evening? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Lennon?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana? Yes. Galloway?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. That moves us to our regular agenda A, consideration to adopt ordinances number 1119 and 1120, ordinances amending Chapter 7, Business Regulations of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances. This item is related to item 8B as well, and I guess I'll introduce this item because 2 weeks ago, when council for the second time struggled to come up with a satisfactory solution to the issue of vendor licenses for trucks and sidewalk vendors, I suggested and we ended up creating a subcommittee of the council that included myself and Councilman Martin to meet with interested parties in the city, including the DDA, to see if we couldn't hash out something that was acceptable and that might meet the what we interpreted as the objections of council. I guess without going into too much detail about that, I think we took that to say that council had expressed concern that the ordinance that had been presented to us was so restrictive that vendors wouldn't take advantage of it. It was not enough days of the week, that there was concern about the fees that were being charged because the proposal was to raise the fees fairly significantly. And so we took that information back and crafted what you see before you this evening. Council has the packet of information. I will highlight sort of the changes that Councilman Martin and I are suggesting to the ordinance as presented 2 weeks ago. That ordinance, by the way, just to refresh your memory, was for the sidewalk vendors to be allowed in the alley. What do we call that alley? The one next to, is there a name for that alley? I'm not, the one
Behind the
next
restaurant?
No, it's
one
across the
next to-
street.
What do we call it?
South
195 West Alley. Thank you very much. The previous recommendation was to allow folks there just on Thursdays, and that was it. So what we are coming back to you with was a suggestion to, do I have the right one in front of me? Just one moment, please. I might be taking these out of order. No? Am I doing all right? To allow the vendors in that alley, not only on that Thursday, but also on Saturdays from 4 p.m. to 3 a.m., also any day of the week from 11 p.m. until 3 a.m. We are recommending that we reduce the fee. I got to find where I'm at here.
Would you like me to?
One moment, please. Let me just find the right piece of paper. Doggone it. Thank you very much. Where is it? Dan, why don't I have the right one?
I'm not sure. I can help you. The reduction of fees is for the carts, which is actually ordinance 1120 for the sidewalk vending. We reduced the license fee to $250.
Thank you.
We did not adjust the fees on the trucks, which is ordinance number 1119, which was the $550 license fee with the $100 application fee and the $50 renewal fee. We also added stipulations to both ordinances that items sold on the cart needed to be comprised of 80% of food or perishable items. That was another change that we made to both ordinances. And then in addition, we allowed both the trucks and the cart, well, the trucks to be available from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., as you mentioned, and the carts to be available from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Thank you, Dan. Now, of course, now I found it.
Okay.
I appreciate that. And I want to thank Councilman Martin for his work with me on this, and also the folks at the DDA who were very helpful in hashing this out. And so this is, as I mentioned at that meeting, the two things that you never really want to see get made are sausage and laws. And for good reason. It's not always pretty. And this one has now been before council 3 times, and we have flailed around with what is the appropriate balance on this. And this is our recommended balance, but reasonable people can disagree. But this is the compromised solution that we present to you today. Are there any questions from council?
Before those questions, can I correct my statement? I'm sorry, I misspoke. The $250 for the vendor carts was the original request. We reduced that to $175, not $250. think. Just want to correct what I said.
Are there questions about this? We'll get into discussion after, if there's a motion, but are there questions of clarification of council on this item?
Well, I guess I have a couple questions. Mayor, why are we doing this at all? I guess my first question. Why are we addressing food carts and and push carts, food trucks and push carts? And does the DDA have an answer? Does anybody?
My answer would be that this council has expressed an interest in encouraging this sort of activity in our downtown. We had a number of people apply last year, and our ordinances were not really written for them, and so we sort of struggled through how to accommodate them last year, and we decided that we needed to tighten that up and have clearer policies in order to encourage vendors to participate.
Well, and then maybe just a question for yourself and Dan and maybe Christina as well. How do we feel this accomplishes that? How do these ordinances accomplish that?
I would argue that it creates an introductory avenue for these venue and something that's new for us over the last couple of years, while still respecting the existing brick and mortar operations within the downtown area. I don't believe it is ever intended that a cart would be a 7-day-a-week operation within the city of Ferndale and be operationally successful, but we've provided some guidelines that we feel comfortable moving forward with to allow these businesses to operate within the city, again, while respectful of our current infrastructure.
And then maybe a question to the clerk or Marnie. What problems did we experience with the old ordinance that we're changing? What happened last year? Were there any problems with it?
Administratively, it turned out that there were a lot of changes. Once people got licenses, they would have to come back to council every time they wanted to make a change, and it seemed like it was turning into something that was occurring far more often than it should. So our incentive in the beginning was to try to tighten the regulations, or at least to have a more of guidelines of how to license these people, as it was a new phenomenon for us, and the ordinance that we were working under didn't specifically address vendors so much.
Okay, thanks. And I guess maybe one more, since Christina's up almost to the microphone. Why is this important? Why are food trucks and push carts important to the DDA?
Well, I think for the DDA, they do add a lot of life and vitality to the street. The one thing that we don't want to see is obviously that it impacts the bricks and mortars that are here in a negative way. It will add vitality to existing programs that we have that will happen on a Thursday, but it will also maybe strengthen certain districts of our downtown. I think one of the things that we did struggle with the previous ordinance, or the current ordinance, I should say, is that really every time someone came in, they were trying to select a on-street parking space or this space in front of that business, and it really became a decision just based on what is at hand at that point, as opposed to being able to better guide them as to where we would want them to work within our city. Really thinking about this as, as a future action, this is where we would like to have businesses and this type of business to grow our districts. So, and obviously this is not addressing the private component area of the private property, so that this is really just focusing in on the central business district, making sure that our businesses that are here 365 days of the year are not negatively impacted, but also can hopefully benefit from the added excitement that food trucks and push carts add for our downtown area.
Now, you said that it was supposed to coordinate with our Thursday programs in the DDA.
Push carts.
Is that correct? Push
Yes,
carts.
push carts.
Okay, push.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not the mobile trucks.
mobile vending is Tuesdays and push carts are Thursdays.
And basically, because when we were looking at that, is really they're taking up parking space. and there's not a way to get them on not on a parking space. So when we have already a parking issue that is happening in the downtown area, it's hard for us to say, yes, let's give that up for a mobile vendor. Tuesday is a day that is still somewhat slower for the entire district. So it seemed like you could do Tuesday fairly well with mobile trucks, as well as the fact that the DDA Board of Directors really felt that even late into the evening, those loading zones could be utilized. So from that midnight on, it's not taking up a parking space and the loading zones aren't being used. So it seemed like a good piece of real estate to utilize if those vendors would like to take advantage of that.
And you're talking about the loading zones on
Troy. Mm-hmm. And we really don't have loading zones designated over on the east side as of yet, but there are loading zones on Troy Street, and we would probably have to look at overall where our loading zones anyways within the district, if there's anything beyond that.
Okay, so when you say add vibrancy and vitality to the business district, I mean, I hear complement the programs that we already have going on. Is that a fair characterization of that?
Complement what we already have
going on, rather
yes.
than create an avenue for new businesses to open up within the city.
From the DDA's perspective, it could be an avenue for a business to become bricks and mortar. But that isn't always the case. So it's an opportunity, just like with Rust Belt Market offers an opportunity for artisans and crafters to get their feet wet, to really introduce themselves to a foot traffic public, to a bricks and mortar public, as opposed to maybe an online presence. It doesn't always mean that it'll translate into that business opening up their own space in the downtown, but I think you open up the opportunity for others to possibly see that.
Okay, and then the concern I had with the one of the concerns I had with the, I guess, compromise position is that we're encouraging these to operate from midnight to 3 a.m. in an area where we've had a lot of complaints about noise already. What, if anything, how are we going to address that? Because it seems to me that we're extending the bar night an extra hour and encouraging people to, congregate on Troy Street.
You mean from 2 to 3, that extra hour?
Yeah. Well, then people who might otherwise have left the bar at 1:30 hang out on Troy Street rather than go
I think
somewhere else.
most people, if they're leaving the bar at night, they're looking for something to go with them. So it is to walk up to something and get something quickly and to continue on walking home or wherever that might be. I don't think it is meant to be a point of, let's all congregate here for another hour and carry the party on outside. And I don't see that really happening by any means. And we have a very good police department that would probably not allow that either, too. So, I think that in terms of noise, you have noise ordinance that's obviously in place. You have loitering ordinances that are also in place, so you can really negate a lot of those potential issues. But I think that at nighttime, that's when a lot of the customers really don't have many options for food, because most of our businesses, if not all, stop serving at midnight, or excuse me, at 1 o'clock. It's like wrong hour. And a lot are at midnight and then some at 1. But I think that is why that our businesses really saw that as an opportunity that, hey, you know what, our customers are leaving, they want something to eat on the way out. Sometimes it's their complaint as well as where do I need to go. So it does give them that extra opportunity for that. So
if this were intra-county liquor license, and I understand that it's not, we would require the applicant to provide a plan for addressing foot traffic and impact on other, businesses that conduct a similar trade nearby. Has the DDA given any thought to those issues?
No, because I think it's somewhat on our part as planners looking at our city and how best to utilize our city, because I think this is, you know, it's a small business structure. When you're talking about a liquor license, you're talking about thousands of dollars that are being spent on that item because it will really generate lots of money for their business. It is a commodity. Whereas the small push cart vendors and mobile vendors, they're not making the numbers that a bar or restaurant will be making with a liquor license. I think that would probably, my perspective, I think that you're just asking too much of them to be able to plan that for you. I think as a city, we should be the planners as to where best that circulation might be.
Well, I tend to agree with that. How is this ordinance, which allows for food trucks and food vendors to operate in conjunction with DDA programs, different than a special event that might be planned by a restaurant?
Well, a special event, they have to go through the special event process. So it could be a food truck rally, but they have a defined area that they would come to and have approved at City Council. And there's a lot of other than rules and guidelines and fees that are associated with that, because generally with a special event, you're talking about much larger crowds. When you're thinking about mobile vending and push carts on a daily basis, that was some of the things that we focused on as a DDA, is to really discern between the fact that this is almost an everyday business for somebody, and they want to try to capture a day, 2 days within our city and move on to other areas, other cities. This is not a special event for them. They are trying to just make ends meet and make some money as a business.
Well, I agree with that from the vendor's perspective, but why shouldn't this be treated as a special event for the DDA?
The DDA is not looking to create food truck rally events specifically.
But you said it's supposed to complement Thursdays on the 9, right?
Well, it will. It will complement that. But I think our role as a DDA has been moving away from organizing special events and having third-party organizers come in and make those events happen. You know, we realize that with limited staff, we cannot continue to put on large special events by ourselves anymore. We really do depend on those third-party organizers.
Well, I'll have some more to say about this in the discussion, but I guess from my perspective, I just don't see how a restaurant putting on a food truck rally is different than the DDA putting on something that isn't an everyday event, but is quite similar, in my opinion, to a special event every Thursday. So, yeah, we can talk about that in discussion.
Other questions of clarification? Is there a motion on this item?
I would move that we adopt ordinance number 1119, an ordinance to amend Chapter 7 Business Regulations and Licenses to add Article 4 Vending Division 2, Mobile Vending, Section 7-80 through 7-89 to the Ferndale Code of Ordinance as submitted.
Support. Moved by Martin, supported by Lennon. All right. Discussion, additional questions on this item?
Well, I guess I've had a few things to say, but if I could, a few more.
Councilman Galloway.
You know, when we first started doing this and first started looking at this, I guess perhaps I was mistaken or perhaps things have changed, but I thought we wanted food trucks and vending carts to be essentially a new business, a new significant draw to the community. And I think what it's really evolved into is what constitutes to a weekly special event for the DDA. And you know, my preference would be to have the trucks located somewhere that doesn't directly compete or doesn't locate the trucks right in front of a restaurant or one of our bricks and mortar businesses, but allows for another dining option for the community. I really have a hard time with the argument that these vending trucks compete directly with restaurants that have liquor licenses, that have bathrooms, that have you know, ability to bring people in from the heat or out of the cold. I just think it's a different animal. As I looked around the internet, you know, a lot of communities charge significantly higher fees, and of course they're perhaps in significantly larger communities, but allow the trucks to park anywhere and just drive around. As long as they're legally parked, they can do business as long as they have their licenses. I'm not sure that's a good fit for a community the size of Ferndale, but I just think that this really is just an outgrowth of programming for the DDA, and if that's the case, then we should treat it like a special event. And we have private businesses that are trying to do the same thing and bearing a significantly greater financial burden. I pulled one today, 7C, not because I'm inherently opposed to the event. It seems like a good one, but it seems like we have two different standards here. And so I would prefer to either see some sort of regularized every single day or nearly every day clustering of mobile vendors or food trucks, or I'd like to have it always treated as a special event with all the things that go along with it and the planning. Or perhaps a third option would be just to say no vending or food trucks on city property at all and let the private market handle it. And that might be the easiest way. It seems like we've really just stuck our hands into a big mess and are sure to upset somebody, and perhaps getting too involved in the private market in ways that is not helpful to anyone. So I'm just really dissatisfied with this, and I don't think it accomplishes really any of the goals that as I understood them. So I will be voting no.
Additional comments?
Scott, can you clarify for me what the difference is, and I guess just be more succinct in the difference between the special events approach and what you think the bricks and mortars doing their own mobile events on private property?
Well, for example, yeah, we have, the WAB has a food truck rally proposed for 3 evenings during the summertime and into the fall. They had to go through the special events process in order to get approval, and had to address things and deal with costs that are significantly greater than what this permit allows. So in item 7C, costs are detailed at $3,400. Went through a different kind of review, more of a site plan, well, our regular special event plan anyhow. And that's for 3 events. But if we're going to do 12 events, then we're saying that the review is less. And that I just don't think makes sense. I think we should give everybody the same treatment. Either we should treat them all as special events, or we should treat them all as just a routine procedure, or we just should say, do your event on private property and stay off the city streets, and let the streets are not a place to do food truck business.
I guess I would say that we heard from a wide range of people who have opinion on this issue. It's amazing how much food carts and trucks elicit people's opinions. All the way from folks who I think would agree, if I'm understanding your opinion correctly, that these kinds of businesses, if you will, do not do anything to compete with our brick and mortar business, and our restaurants should not be worried about that competition, all the way to business owners who were adamant that they didn't want us to do this at all on any day of the week. And we had a wide range of views in between there. I think what we tried to do was strike a balance and recognize that we don't really know. I mean, I don't know that there's data or a survey that says whether they compete with a regular brick and mortar or not. I'll tell you this, I think most communities do not allow this in any sort because the brick and mortar businesses are concerned about the impact on their business. So I feel like we want to encourage it. I think we are encouraging it. I don't think these are special events. It's not a one-time event. It is a regular operation that we're allowing them to do. It might not be 7 days a week, but it is a regular and ongoing concern that we're trying to create. And so it is admittedly a balance. And I think we are going to find out if this is too prohibitive for the food truck and vendor folks to want to take advantage of it or not, and we may have to revisit this again, because I don't know that the data is conclusive on whether or not they're competing with adversely to the restaurants. But I know that we heard very strongly from some of our business owners, some very dedicated and long-standing members of our community who are very concerned about what we're doing, and we did our best to address their concerns, while I would argue still try to encourage this sort of activity. And it is a balance that we struck, and it may not be the right one, I'll admit that, but it's one that at least I'm comfortable giving a try.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would second that. I think that this does strike a balance, and while I really do respect Councilman Galloway's comments, this ordinance addresses not only the functioning of these the vehicles and carts as well as, but also addresses concerns that have been raised about the content of what's being sold as well. And that's where, we strike a balance across the board. We heard from an awful lot of people, and I'm as a relatively new industry, and one that a lot of cities, again, don't allow, this provides a structured environment to move forward. I think, again, respecting both sides of the equation.
And through the chair, if I
Yes.
may. I also think that we all share the same goal, is that we want to nurture entrepreneurs, absolutely. And we want to be a city known as being a place where entrepreneurs can start up and have a safe environment and a nurturing environment in which to grow their business. And I think that's something that we all share and that we have tried to balance here. I have received comments from residents saying that perhaps our days and hours are not consistent in consecutive days, or they break during, it's like lunch hour and then it's later in the evening, so it's not like an all-day thing, and that could be problematic as entrepreneurs try to adjust their business approach in our downtown. But I think we are setting a baseline here in order to test that. So, but I also, Scott, I hear you about, the vendor trucks don't compete with bricks and mortars, and I do think that's a different animal, and I think that's why council sent this back to be worked on again with the DDA, that council had a different policy direction than the DDA. And I think this sets the right approach. And I think for your comment about the outgrowth program for the DDA, I've interpreted that as perhaps you're critical of how the DDA went around solving this. I'm not sure, but I thought that was a collaborative approach between council and the DDA. So if there's some process improvements that we need to make there to address some of your concerns of how we came to this point, because I heard that was one of your concerns. So I don't want that to be left off the table as part of this vote, because I think it's important to address after this meeting. So based on that, I think this is a place to start. And I think we've lowered the price that we said that we wanted to. The days, I still think, in my opinion, we're not to the frequency of days I'd like to see, but I'm willing to vote in support of this today to test that. But if we do get comments back in the next month or two after these vendors apply and that they can't make it, I know where it's going to come back and that we're going to increase the days, because we've spent so much time and care to work on this ordinance. So that's kind of where I am right now.
If I could just make one point of clarification. I don't have any problem with an ordinance or with these trucks supporting and being done in conjunction with the DDA, just as I assume that the WAB's food truck rally is done in conjunction with its business. I guess maybe the WAB should get rid of the porta potties and and lobby council, and then eliminate $3,000 of costs, because that would support its interest in the same way that this program supports the DDA. So I just have a hard time seeing the difference between the two programs and why we should treat one as a special event, or allow people to have food truck rallies that are treated as special events, and then have an ordinance that essentially doesn't create a regular business. In my mind, creates just another special event. So I think it's great for the DDA. I'm happy we're doing it. I think it'll help the downtown. I just don't understand why we have a distinction, but I guess I'm the only one who feels that way. So,
Councilman Lennon, you had a,
Well, I mean, lots been said up here. I think we might as well bring it to a vote. But I do partially agree with Councilman Galloway and Melanie, but I also, for once, agree with Christina on something, and that's the ambiance, for lack of a better term, and the vitality it brings to the downtown. I like that. I just think the hours are a little bit still restrictive, and when we get to the web on the agenda, I'll have something to say about that. But I'm ready to test the waters for this new ordinance now.
and I do want to, by the way, address the issue of fees. We lowered the fees, and there was a lot of discussion about this, because fees are the way that we think long-term we're going to be able to control the quality of these. We want to make sure that these aren't fly-by-night, shady-looking operations that don't enhance the visibility of our city. And so there's a lot of discussion about how, if this is successful and if people can make it at these fees, that we will use the fees in the future to increase them to make sure that the quality of the vendors is what we expect in downtown. So we wanted to lower it for this year to encourage the entrepreneurship, but with the mindset that if it does, we very well may look at that fee structure again in the future to make sure that we're getting the quality of vendors that we want as well. Additional comments or questions on this item? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmembers Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Galloway,
no.
Lennon,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That ordinance is adopted. Brings us to regular agenda item B, which
Now,
is,
Mr. Mayor, if I may, sir,
Oh, yeah.
we have another motion for 1120 that we need to approve as well on this.
oh, we need to do those in two
So-
motions?
Yeah.
Dan?
You only approved ordinance 1119.
Even though
Correct. We need
it's
to.
not what I read. Okay. Are you making a motion?
I will move to adopt ordinance number 1120, an ordinance to amend Chapter 7, Business Regulation and Licenses, to add Article 4, Vending Division 1, Sidewalk Vending, Section 7-68 through 7-77 to the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Discussion on that item. Thanks for the catch, Councilman. If not, call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Councilmembers Piana,
Yes.
Lennon, Galloway,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That ordinance is also adopted. Now, regular agenda item B. This is the consideration to adopt resolutions designating specific specific public spaces for vending in the downtown vending district and setting the fees pursuant to Chapter 7, Business Regulations of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances. We've discussed this in the larger context, but just so that it's clear, the fees that are being proposed for the mobile vending is a non-refundable application fee of $100 and a license fee of $550 per year, with a $50 renewal application fee for the following years. For sidewalk vendors, it would be a non-refundable application fee of $100, a license fee of $175 a year, and a $50 renewal application fee for the following years. Is there a motion for that? Or questions of clarification first? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I would move that we adopt the resolution identifying authorized public parking spaces and setting fees for mobile vending pursuant to Chapter 7, Business Regulations and Licenses, Division 2, Mobile Vending, of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Now, is there any questions, comments on this item? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Galloway,
No.
Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Councilman Lennon is absent, and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on. Oh,
We have to, the second one. I have to
Oh, we
move
gotta
to
do it
adopt the
twice.
resolution identifying authorized block locations and setting fees for sidewalk vending pursuant to Chapter 7, Business Regulations and Licenses, Division 1, Sidewalk Vending, in the Ferndale Code of Ordinances as submitted.
Is there support?
Support.
That motion, actually, you did combine.
Did I?
Discussion on that item. Madam Clerk, once again.
Councilmembers Lennon is not here. Martin,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Galloway,
No.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Right, now, finally, regular agenda item C, and our city manager is going to introduce a consideration to adopt the fiscal year 2013 budget.
Good evening. On April 9th, we went over the budget for the general fund, budget recommendations, and on April 30th, we focused on the non-general fund. At that time, we started to have a conversation on the budget in general, and council had asked that if staff could go back and review and see if there was any possible way we could lower that millage even slightly. And I took that as well during the conversation. We discussed that would include without any layoffs or staffing changes or service delivery changes. So with that, I want to recap just a little bit about where we are. Right, what I have above or in front of you now is, again, the recommended millage rates and fee schedule that was before you the last two meetings that we've had. With that, for fiscal year 2012, we asked to adjust the millage rate from 3.0 to 3.75 mils, and in fiscal year 2013 go from 3.75 to 4.85. That seemed to be the bigger focus with City Council. The other fees and millage rate you can see there for the general obligation debt, as well as sanitation and water sewer rates are there for your review. So with that, I want to talk just a little bit about how it is that we actually moved up in the millage rate, so we have a better understanding of what's happened with our finances. Majority really comes from our taxable value drop. We did see, again, as a reminder, an almost -7 or a 7% decline, if you will, of our millage rate, which was a loss right up off the top at almost $500,000, which is right now our mill average is about $500,000. We also saw another decrease in almost $200,000 in state shared revenue. The other funding mechanism that we've been receiving over the last couple of years is the retiree insurance program, which it helps offset costs for those who are on Medicaid or Medicare, if you will. And they have stopped that funding. It's ceased. And we are unclear if that will ever come back. So that was another, we put in a zero for that revenue that was coming in the last few years. So in total, you see there that there was quite a hefty decline in our revenue. And the actual reason why we only had to go up 0.75 was we had this unanticipated payment from Murmur that we talked about, which again is not, we're not anticipating for next year. So had that not happened, we would have actually, for both years, looked at about a 4.75, 4.85 millage increase. So that's a little bit of why we had to adjust the millage rate, and we're unable to keep it at 3 without making staffing cuts. So you can see again that our revenues are still declining dramatically. Now, what's good news is that next year we are looking at only a 1% decline, which hopefully means that we're leveling off. But with that, as you know, is personal property tax. So just as we level off there, we'll be looking at a loss of $675,000, I believe, in the general fund for property or personal property tax, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So, again, I just wanted to make it understanding for council and the residents of where it is and what caused that millage rate to increase like it did. So that's what brought us to this 0.75 millage increase. Again, you can see here is a chart that shows the good years, 2001 to 2008, and they started to 2009 actually and started to decline again. So we've been seeing that steady decrease. We're very fortunate compared to our neighbors who are still seeing significant property decline. Hazel Park, I believe, is almost 17% this year. So it's pretty significant, and so they're not done. So we are very, very fortunate. So again, with that, the conversation lent itself on April 30th, if we could come back with at least some kind of adjustment. And so as we looked through the budget, a couple of items was a comfortable recommendation, at least from the city manager and the finance director, is that if we lowered, our goal was to see where we could find some funds to try to reduce it even just a little bit. And the two areas that we felt were appropriate was there is a contingency line item under central services. It's about $250,000 each year. And that is to offset for unexpected unexpected losses in revenue or unexpected expenditures. And so with that, I think our department heads have a very good handle on their budget and are fairly comfortable with what kind of funding that they have coming in, what expenditures are going out. So I was comfortable in turn of lowering that contingency line item by $100,000. The other area that we looked at was the Public Improvement Fund, which is our capital, which is mostly for our facilities. And we actually didn't have any specific projects. You know, this year we did the HVAC system and things of that nature. But that is typically for the unexpected things that happen to maybe somebody else's roof, or we need to replace windows or things of that nature. So because we didn't have a big project designated, again, we were comfortable with lowering the expenditure line item for public improvement. And this is for both fiscal year 13 and 14, which would lower the millage rate in 2013 from 3.75 to 3.5, and in fiscal year 2014 to 4.60. I hesitate to go any further in 2013, just as things are still really volatile. We're, personal property tax, we'll talk about again, I think in the next slide, I can talk about that now. They're indicating now that what's on the books is to eliminate in this next fiscal year the personal property tax valued under $40,000, which for the city of Ferndale is $100,000 to the general fund. So the state's we're still not at that level where in years past we expected the revenue, we knew it was coming forward, and we're not getting that anymore. So we hesitate to dig too further as we still are trying to figure out where our revenues are going to land. And then in fiscal year 2014, that's actually 2 years away, and things are changing so dramatically again at the state that to move you even closer to lowering that more right now made us a little weary when it comes to the budget. But of course, with it being a 2-year budget, we can do mid-year adjustments. We can always adjust 2014 at any time. So that is where staff was more comfortable bringing to you basically where we thought we could go in lowering that millage rate. I think I already talked about that since that conversation, again, right now that there's language bill to reduce personal property tax, starting with personal property under $40,000. Again, that's $100,000 loss to the general fund. And they're still moving forward with the hope that industrial personal property tax will be next to be eliminated, but not till fiscal year 2016, which is another $250,000 to the general fund. The state has indicated that their intent is to replace, I believe, 2/3 of that funding, but they have no plan for that. So we're moving forward assuming that if that were to happen, then it won't be replaced. But it has not been voted at this time, and things could change. So that's just something to take into consideration. So with that information and the recommendations before you, I open the budget up for discussion, thoughts, comments, and recommendations from City Council.
And before we have the discussion, let me ask for purposes of clarification. Because we need to have a public hearing this evening.
Sorry, yes.
Which means, and this is an oversight on our part, but because we needed to have a public hearing first, we can't formally adopt the budget tonight. We have to do that next Monday.
Right.
Are you looking for an actual motion tonight, or just a discussion around
the discussion, so that what we could do is if there is somewhat of a consensus up here, we can bring that back on Monday, May 14th with the appropriate changes. Yep. And there will be another public hearing.
Yes.
Yep.
So just so council is clear and the public is clear, we're not going to vote on the budget this evening. We're going to have discussion. We'll give our city manager some direction on where we'd like to go. The public can do the same. We'll be back here next Monday night at 6 p.m.
Yes.
To formally adopt.
And that will be the only thing on the agenda.
That will be the only thing on the agenda. All right. With that being said, questions or comments of council on the budget?
I'll start out by thank you and your staff for going back and taking a look and finding the extra $250,000 that we were looking for from the last hearing. I do really appreciate that. I do still have some uneasiness about the water and sewer fund. Can you clarify that the 9% increase is strictly pass-on costs to the city?
The majority is from the new charges coming from the Detroit Water.
The majority being, how much, like all of it, or where's the balance coming from?
Sure. Jay Marie, the increase in the water rates is from the increase in those water rates from Detroit, correct? All of it? Majority of it, yeah. Like 95%? I mean, there's like a few dollars in other places, but it's pretty close to all of it.
Other questions, Councilman? Comments?
I am curious about the discrepancy, and if you have to research this and get back, I mean, I think that's completely fine. The $450,000 in water penalties compared to the relatively low shutoff, $9,000, seems, $500,000 in water penalties assessed seems very high to me, particularly since it was almost $100,000 less just 2 or 3 years ago.
Hang on a second, let me get to that page. Are you asking what is causing more penalties?
There's a couple questions. There's a penalty versus the shutoff, and just the fund in general, the numbers just, I think all of us have heard concerns from residents about the water rates and how they've been reacting over the last couple of years. And I would appreciate, I guess, a more in-depth dive and comparison about what the makeup and our procedures are about how those penalties accrue and work versus when someone gets moved to the shutoff and what our policies around that are to understand, because it seems like a broad discrepancy to me, and there's so much concern about what we're being charged and what the residents are being charged today. I just want to make sure I really understand what's going on in that fund and the procedures in place that drive that. So I don't expect you to pull them out today, but if I could get more information on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I guess just a couple of comments. Because I've had folks ask me, why can't we maintain the current 3.0 Headley override? We haven't increased spending any in the last year. So I appreciate the slides, which very clearly said that doing nothing different than we did last year, we still lost $478,000 in taxable value, $189,000 in revenue sharing, $260,000 in early retiree program. And so standing still, we're losing ground. And so I understand that in order to gain just kind of the ground that we've lost in the last year would be a 0.75 increase. But I also very much appreciate the recommendation, or at least the option, of trimming that to 3.5 and taking that from basically to contingency funds. And, contingencies are there for a reason. Things happen. But I think because we have done some pretty good budgeting over the years, we have a healthy enough fund balance that if indeed an emergency were to happen or a major problem of that magnitude, we could look to that on a one-time basis. And so I guess because of that, I am comfortable reducing those contingency items, and at least for myself, and others can speak to that, I would like to see you come back next week, with a recommendation that's to 3.5 and to adopt these two suggestions that you gave us, tightening our belts just as much as we can, short of further layoffs or anything like that. I think we've all recognized that we don't need to go there, but I appreciate those recommendations, and I, for one, would support adopting those. Any other comments or direction from council to our city manager before we adopt the budget next week?
Through the chair, I concur with your statements about looking to keep the millage rate as low as possible to deal with this additional shortfall. I know we are projecting a shortfall over the next couple of years, and tempering as much as we can, but also acknowledging and thanking our residents for voting for the Headley override, which gives us the flexibility to do a year-by-year response based on the risks thrown at us, which seem to be coming all the time. So I really appreciate the due diligence that staff has done in April to get us to this point.
You know, and just on that point, I would, because I'm looking at the police chief now, but, you know, our good friends and neighbors in Oak Park did lay off 17, I believe, officers just this last month. These crises for all of our cities are very real. I know they have a Headley election coming up to try to bring some of those folks back. I sure hope they can do it, because we don't need to be surrounded by neighbors that don't have adequate police protection, for sure. But it just goes to demonstrate, I think, that these financial issues that we're dealing with are very real, and Oak Park just felt that in a very real way, and I, too, am grateful that our residents allowed us the ability not to have to do that. And that this budget continues our ability to preserve the force that we have. So, good thing.
Also, before we move further from that, there are two adjustments to the budget that I will be bringing forward on Monday as well. When we went through the general fund, we found a couple of things. I think we had mentioned that even at the presentation, that we had miscalculated some expenditure needs for part-time under the police department, so we will be readjusting that. It was, I believe, at $61,000, and we actually only need that to be $31,000, so there'll be a savings of $30,000 there. But I also failed to budget for the alternative analysis, the contribution that all of the communities are asked to make regarding the alternative analysis study that's being done along Woodward. And I would like to put that under CED, under special consulting. So essentially, it's still at the end of the budget it'll be essentially a wash. But I didn't want to not bring that to your attention, so that when you see it next year, you are wondering why I put that there. So those were just two budget adjustments that we needed to change. So if there's no issues with that, you'll see that on the budget on Monday as well.
All right. If there's no other discussion, motion is not needed on this item at this time, correct? So we can move to the next item of business, which would be regular agenda item D, which is formally the consent agenda item 7C, which is the WAB food truck rally request. Councilman Galloway, you removed that from the consent agenda.
Yes, Mayor. In reviewing this item, I didn't really have any, I guess as I think about it now, concerns about the event itself. I was just hoping that we would have an opportunity to discuss. It looked to me like two very similar events. One that requires a special event permit and one that doesn't. I think through our discussion, it's become clear to me that that's not the will of council. So I would simply move that we authorize the WAB food truck rally as proposed.
Support.
Moved by Galloway and supported by Piana. Any additional comments or questions on this item of council? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Which brings us to call to council. Police Chief, anything additional this evening for the good of the community?
Very briefly, Your Honor, first off, I'd like to thank you for the adoption of the recognition of Police Week that we had at the last City Council meeting, and I would like to invite council, mayor and council and the public on May 15th, which is Police Memorial Day itself, at 10 o'clock in front of the City Hall, where we'll have a small ceremony to honor those officers that are given their lives in the line of duty in the past year. That being said, I guess the Oak Park thing kind of threw me for a bit of a loop when they said that none of them are going to be here because of the layoff, and because I spent a lot of time this afternoon researching the individual that was arrested, and I was a little bit remiss to let you know how much of a bad guy that was that those officers took off the street. This individual had a history that went back to 1986 that included robbery, weapons charges, 2 B&Es, criminal sexual conduct with a person under 13. He was a parole violator, had several warrants out for his arrest, obstruction, and jailbreak. So that individual that was taken off the street was a serious bad guy. Kind of did all that research, and I wanted to make sure that I got to use that. And lastly, of course, as I told you, a little bit of a fun thing after all of that is that we still have tickets for the Moo-Poo. If anybody's interested, I brought my kids' envelope filled with them. Those are that is the fundraiser for the football program. So if anybody's interested, I'll have those too. Thank you very much this evening.
Stick around. I'll get one after the meeting, Chief. Thank you. Fire Chief is here this evening. Chief Sullivan, anything for the good of the community tonight?
We've had a few fire activities, Your Honor. One that was concerning was a lady who was intoxicated, drove through the front of Kitchen Concepts on 8 Mile Road, and she was lucky the building was extremely well built. They had a steel I-beam that carried the front of the building all the way across. Because she hit it and took out the support column right where the two beams for the whole building meet at the front door. So had they not had a solid beam going all the way across, she would have been wearing the whole building, which probably would have crushed her to death. Luckily, she hit the building and no one else, because at her speed, and she could have did serious damage to a lot of other vehicles. So I caution people out there drinking and driving. That's bad news. A lot of damage done to the building. The car caught fire, but luckily the fire was pulling up. Police officers had the woman away from the vehicle, so she could not have gotten any more seriously hurt. She was pretty relaxed, but the fire was extinguished rather rapidly. And then the CERT team, we're doing really well. We're almost to the point where we'll start getting our background checks and that done, so if we have to call them up, we'll be ready to go if a big storm or something hits where we need the extra help.
They're fired up. I know. I've talked to a number of them. Not
Literally.
Not looking for an incident, but they're ready to go. Yeah, fired up. No pun intended. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Jill, our new recreation director. Anything? Nothing tonight? All right. Derek, anything from Community and Economic Development?
Just real quick from the planning side of things, the Planning Commission on Wednesday night is going to review ordinances for a public hearing for 2 ordinance amendments. Potentially one is a novelty shop ordinance, which has been discussed thoroughly by both the Planning Commission and staff since council remanded to them several months ago. And then the other ordinance that will be considered is one for pet boarding facilities. So if anybody's interested, the public hearings will be held Wednesday night.
Thanks, Derek. Appreciate it. Jane Marie, anything else from the finance area? No, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Marnie, anything from the clerk's office tonight?
I did want to announce that the filing deadline for precinct delegates is next Tuesday, May 15th at 4 p.m. Anyone interested in becoming a precinct delegate for their political party can come to the clerk's office and file with us by 4 o'clock next Tuesday.
Great. And by the way, thank you for ably filling in for Sherilyn this evening.
Thank you.
Great to see you as always. Our city manager, April McGrath. Anything else from your office tonight?
All right, yep. Just a general reminder that this coming Monday at 6 p.m. will be a formal budget hearing and adoption. That will be the only thing on the agenda. Staff is also excited to report that we are one step closer to a new website. We've received RFPs and have narrowed it down to, I believe, 4. I think it's 4 companies that staff will be interviewing. We have a review team for that, and we are currently reviewing as well how to go forward with our branding, as well as we received quite a few RFPs for that. So there'll be more to come on that process, which will definitely include City Council and the public in that manner. So we are very excited to get started on that project. So that's all we have today.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Dan, Chris, anything from the legal perspective tonight?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
All right. Councilman Martin.
2 things. One, I want to congratulate Fern Care, and I wish Ann Heller were here, but they had just a fantastic annual dinner last week, and I know they, I haven't heard a total final number, but I know they did quite well. And the MC was very good as well, Mr. Mayor. But it was a really neat event. Fern Care is one of those gems of the community that it's good to get set back and celebrate once a year and recognize, so that was great. My second reminder is that the Ferndale Community Foundation is accepting grant applications currently, and for the next couple of weeks. We're giving out $8,000 up to $2,500 per grant. The grant application is available on the website at www.ferndaleCommunityFoundation.org.
Wonderful. Councilman Lennon.
Well, not much other than if we've had a lot of rain lately, and we're predicting more this week. If you have a sewer in front of your house, it'd be a great help to DPW to make sure that sewer grate is clear of leaves and branches that plug up the streets, which in turn turns into a safety issue. Cars can start hydroplaning. We've had a couple of those serious fatalities with hydroplaning. So it would help out. The DPW does go around and try to clear as many as they possibly can, but it's tough. So just a little reminder, if you're a homeowner and you got one in front of your house, that would help.
Good reminder, thank you. Councilwoman Piana.
Oh, yes, I've got a few, so bear with me. I just want to give everybody an update on the Woodward alternative analysis. SEMCOG has chosen a consulting firm, Parsons Bricknikoff, which did all the engineering for Woodward Light Rail, or M1, and that contract is going to be signed this month, and that's going to kick off a 15-month public engagement process to do the analysis. So we are going to be starting that in June. Lots more information to come, but I want to let you know it's about to begin after all of this time getting to this point. Speaking of transportation, this week is a huge milestone, if it happens, to end 23 times that we attempted to create a regional transit authority legislation. And right now, the Senate is going to vote on the RTA legislation. And a couple weeks ago, it was understood that there was bipartisan support, and now it's on the rocks. So if it gets voted down, we will probably be in another year's time to try to get our legislators, state reps, and senators to approve RTA legislation. So I encourage you to call Senator Vincent Gregory to voice your support for RTA legislation, and his office number is 517-373-7888. And if you know anybody else across the state whose legislators need to vote on this as well, they all do. I encourage you to ask your friends and family to call up their legislators and tell them to vote yes in favor of the RTA legislation. This is it, folks. Let's get it done. Team Mel or Team Dan? Clean the F up. I'm part of the team lead for the Ferndale Community Foundation's Clean the F Up this Saturday. Of course, it's already been announced. It's at 8:30, but you can be with me, Queen of Clean. I used to be a maid, so yes. Or go with Team Dan, so not as clean.
But much more fun.
See about that. And then moving more on to something very special that I'm really excited about is a new cycling group, a community of women coming together to celebrate cycling and everyday clothing called Skirts, Heels, and Wheels. And we're convening at the Loving Touch on Ferndale Bike Night. And it is starts at 7 o'clock, and we're going to have some local professional photographers there taking photographs of women looking fashionable on their bikes and their bikes' accessories. So this is a bigger push to encourage people to get on their bikes and get around town in a non-motorized, gas-free fashion. And you don't need spandex or fluorescent clothing to do it. And my final announcement is 10 years. The Suburbs Alliance has been in existence for 10 years. And the city of Ferndale was a founding member of the Suburbs Alliance, along with former our Mayor Guido, deceased now in the city of Dearborn. And we are convening on Friday, June 8th at the Detroit Zoo, and tickets are $50, and I've been told it's going to be fun. I know it's going to be fun because I'm part of creating the fun. So Dan, I am fun.
I know you're fun. I'm not.
So I encourage council to come and celebrate an organization that was created by interring communities around our region to help do advocacy on all of our shared issues. So I encourage you to sign up at the Suburbs Alliance Register. So thank you, and that's it.
Great, thank you. Councilman Galloway.
Well, I've probably said more than most people want to hear already, but we do have a special meeting coming up next Monday to adopt the budget, and citizen input certainly shapes our ideas and thoughts about things. So between now and next Monday, please reach out to us if you have concerns with the budget or the direction we're going in on that, and we'll take those thoughts into account when we vote on the budget next week. That's it.
Thank you, thank you. And I just have a couple of quick things tonight. I want to congratulate the DDA. I was privileged to be able to go to the meeting last Friday, the awards banquet, where we received 3 awards for our downtown. Rust Belt Market was one of the recipients, Dean Bach for volunteerism, and our signage that helps folks find their way in downtown all received awards. So congratulations, Christina, and all the folks at the DDA. And then finally, Byron wanted me to to remind folks that the city's 11th annual Arbor Day tree planting is going to take place on Friday, May the 25th at 10 a.m. at Oppenheim Park, which, if you don't know where Oppenheim Park is, that's located on St. Louis Street, 1 block south of West Marshall. The Coolidge Intermediate School's Green Beans group, along with Mr. Williams' class, will assist in planting 2 trees that day, and kids are going to be taught about the importance and benefit of trees in our highly urbanized environment. So I want you, if you can, to go on out to the Arbor Day tree planting. Again, that's Friday, May 25th, 10 a.m. at Oppenheim Park. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.